It's Robino coming to you from the original Cherokee lands of Greenville, South Carolina, the upstate. This is where the Cherokee are from. And if you're wondering why I'm talking about the Cherokee, it's because of Fauxcahontas Warren. Elizabeth Warren, who says she's Cherokee but has no proof that she is. And Fauxcahontas, my friends, has struck again. I mean, you've seen what's going on in the news. There's a bunch of stuff that we're going to go over. The first thing is everybody's talking about her trying to disparage Senator Sessions on the floor of the House by reading a letter from Coretta Scott King, who, later actually praised Senator Sessions, and so did the Alabama NAACP. But, they're talking about how they were shutting her up and they were doing all kinds of things to poor Elizabeth Warren, and they were using arcane rules. But before we talk about that, I want to remind you that you should subscribe to CRTV, and if you use our code, CRLive, because we're doing the CR Facebook Live, so CRLIVE, you get $10 off a yearly subscription. So make sure you go to crtv.com, sign up to see all the unbelievable CR 360 content from your conservative review team and, Mark Levin, Michelle Malkin, my man Steven Crowder. All those people also as well. And if you got questions, don't forget to tell the questions to Chris. He'll give them to me. Actually, Phil. Why did I call you Chris? I do that all the time, Mr. Shiver.
Yeah.
I do it a lot. Phil Shiver, my producer, will get you those questions later. He's also our master social media guy on the Facebook, so you see his posts all the time. Let's just talk about this first. Brian Darling went through it on our site. He used to work in the Senate. This isn't some arcane rule that they brought her up on, that Mitch McConnell brought her up on. You've seen the left go, oh, they brought up some arcane rule from the 1800s that was meant to stop fistfights on the floor. It's pretty much common knowledge. I mean, I knew it when I was a kid 30 years ago watching C-SPAN on TV. You're not supposed to talk ill of a fellow member. That's true in the House, and that's true in the Senate. It's something that's true. It's been that way all the way. The reason they haven't enforced it is because people haven't broken it. And you've seen it all the time when they've said something a little bit. It's usually not the first time somebody says, you can't do that, they shut up and then they talk about something else. But Elizabeth Warren persisted. It's not an arcane rule. It's something that they did. And then, there's another thing on the left that they've been going crazy about, especially the social justice warriors and the feminist movement. They've been saying that Mitch McConnell mansplained the arcane rule, quote unquote, to Elizabeth Warren. I got something for you. Mansplaining ain't a thing. There's no such thing as mansplaining. It's just some sort of made-up social justice warrior thing. No matter if a man or a woman explains a rule to you, it's not mansplaining, it's explaining. And the fact that she didn't know the rule, that's her problem, not my problem. But I've got a lot of time with Elizabeth Warren. I covered the race in 2012 when I wrote for Red Mass Group, a blog that I used to own and sold, and it's up in Massachusetts now. So I covered that race. Back in 2010, I helped Scott Brown a lot when he beat Martha Coakley. So very intimately involved in that race in 2012. But, when Elizabeth Warren says she doesn't know stuff, she's lying like she always does. The first thing I learned is what everybody knows and why we call her Fauxcahontas. She's not a Native American. She has no Cherokee blood. Now, the problem is that a lot of people in Oklahoma think that they do. It's family lore that they have Cherokee blood because Oklahoma was where the Trail of Tears ended up, and that's where the Cherokee ended up. But there's a site, Thoughts from Polly's Granddaughter. She's a Cherokee genealogist who in 2012 was in the Boston Herald all the time, took great offense to Elizabeth Warren calling herself a Cherokee because that comes with benefits. So they're very selective. If you're not a member of a tribe, you shouldn't be able to call yourself a Cherokee. I found out later in life, I always thought that I had a part Micmac in me. Micmac is a northeastern United States and southeastern Canadian, the Maritimes tribe. Always thought I had part of that in me because I'm Acadian. And there was a lot of intermarriage. But I never claimed it. And then I found out a couple years ago when I went back to New Brunswick, it turns out that my great-grandmother, my mother's grandmother, was actually a full-blooded Micmac. She was adopted into a French-Canadian family, into an Acadian family. So I actually have 1/8 at a minimum of Micmac blood, but I don't go and claim special status to get free things from the Canadian government or the U.S. government because I have it. But that's what Elizabeth Warren did. She claimed she was a Cherokee so she could get into school, so she could get hired as a law professor, always to try and grab whatever benefit from saying that she was falsely a Cherokee that she could. That's what she did. You know, and the other thing with Elizabeth Warren, her signature issue is banking and regulation, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and how awful the subprime lenders were. Who's the first person she went to when she was running for Senate in Massachusetts? Deval Patrick. Now, those people in Massachusetts that are conservatives know what Deval Patrick did, but you guys might not. Deval Patrick was a subprime banker. He worked for Ameriquest, the worst subprime bank in the country, for Roland Arnold, who George Bush gave an ambassadorship to, but he worked for this unbelievably unethical subprime bank. This subprime bank gave predatory loans before, during, and after the time that Deval Patrick was there. Deval Patrick went to a meeting of the attorney generals of all of the states. And when he was there, they paid for it. And the attorneys general was saying, oh, you guys can't pay for it. We got to pay for it. And he was one of the people that said, don't worry about it. Broke tons of laws. All documented. All documented in books. But what did Elizabeth Warren do? She went to Deval Patrick. And you know what's interesting? Is after Deval Patrick gave her the help, she went to Lynn. There were 3 properties in Lynn that I found out in 2012. This is Lynn, Massachusetts. That Deval Patrick's bank foreclosed on people that got subprime loans at 12 to 12A Howard Street. Had an Ameriquest mortgage, foreclosed on 1/19/2012. 189 Mariana Street, Ameriquest mortgage, foreclosed on March 20th. 47 Glenwood Street, had an Ameriquest mortgage, foreclosed on March 22nd of 2012. Those are places that Elizabeth Warren went to campaign in 2012 in the city where Deval Patrick had forced people to lose their homes by being on the board of Ameriquest. All of those loans, by the way, were given while Deval Patrick was on the board. I made sure that I did that in 2012 to make sure. And then, she kept the lie going about being a Cherokee. She put 4 recipes, one under her husband's name, but 4 recipes in this book called Bow Wow Chow. Now, I don't know if you can read this on the thing, but that says Mexican oatmeal soup. Doesn't sound very Cherokee to me. But 3 of those recipes, Howie Carr at WRKL found out, were plagiarized. They weren't even her recipes. So not only did she lie about being a Cherokee to get in the book, the recipes that she gave weren't even her own. And before we go into the closing part, make sure that you ask the questions. And I just want to remind you, CR Live is the promo code on crtv.com. You get $10 off a yearly subscription. Make sure you subscribe to CRTV with the promo code CR Live. You get Malkin, you get Crowder, you get Stein, you get Mark Levin. And coming soon, you're going to get Steve Deace on that show too. So make sure you do that. crtv.com, promo code CR Live. And here's the final thing. Again, Elizabeth Warren was huge against Betsy DeVos because she would ruin education. Just like Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren was very much for school choice. You probably didn't know that. You also probably didn't know that Elizabeth Warren was a registered Republican up until 2005. I knew that because I covered the race in 2012, but she went completely off the deep end. But one of the things she kept was school choice, because school choice is better for low-income, poor kids in underserved neighborhoods that are trapped in public schools that are failing them. George W. Bush called it the civil rights, I think it was George W. Bush, called it the civil rights crusade of our time. Lots of people have said that, but I think it was George W. Bush that actually coined that phrase. But what did Warren want for school choice? Sounds a heck of a lot like Betsy DeVos. She said that fully funded vouchers would empower parents. The dollar follows the students, so the parents get to choose the school, whether that be public, private, or charter. That seems like a very good idea. Elizabeth Warren seemingly doesn't believe it now because she didn't vote for the person that wants to make that law. She also said that vouchers are the shock the education system needs. Well, that's before she took millions of dollars, in her campaigns took millions of dollars from, teachers' unions. And she now knows the teachers' unions are what are needed for the left to fund their races. So, of course, there's no more shock. The whole thing about Betsy DeVos, the whole reason that they were against Betsy DeVos on the left isn't because they think that Betsy DeVos would be bad for education. We can see that right now because Elizabeth Warren holds a lot of the same beliefs. It was because Betsy DeVos, by getting vouchers, would take money away from teachers' unions, and teachers' unions are one of the largest funders of candidates and causes on the left. It's all in public records. It's all in campaign finance reports. You can go and find it yourself. I looked just in Massachusetts because people were challenging me, that my friends from Massachusetts, they gave in 2014 in the gubernatorial race, that whole year, they gave over 20% of all of the soft money spent in 2014 in Massachusetts was spent by teachers unions just in the state of Massachusetts. So you can imagine what it's like nationwide. And then the final thing is vouchers take power from bureaucrats, and that's a good thing. Much like the second point, absolutely true. When the dollars follow the students and teachers win. Because what happens is if the parent thinks that their kid's not getting a great education, they take them out of that school, use the voucher to put them in a different school. And if there's no charter caps and there's no caps on the number of schools, you don't have to worry about lotteries. You don't have to worry about those sorts of things. You can just move schools. There'll be multiple schools available for you to use your voucher dollar at. It's exactly what Elizabeth Warren wanted to have happen. But then she voted against the person that wanted to make that the policy of the United States. Now what we're going to do is we're going to answer your questions. Phil has gotten a bunch. See, I called him Phil this time, not Chris. A bunch of questions. Just wanted to ask these questions. So, Sue Foy says, how about stupid idiot? In response to Elizabeth Warren's nickname. That could work, but, Fauxcahontas brings into the whole she's a fake Indian. Shelley Ash, did you hear Senator Rubio's response from the floor? Excellent. Give him a shout out. Yeah, we have that on Conservative Review. My man Chris Pandolfo in the room next door wrote that piece. Senator Rubio, basically said what I said in the beginning, which is we have these rules that we don't attack other senators because we want to hear other points of view. And we've gotten so partisan that we can't even have a discussion anymore without it going to being called a racist. Every time you call somebody a racist, the argument ends. There is no argument. There is no discussion. But that's what the left wants to do. It's one of the Saul Alinsky's tactics. Personalize it and go on the attack to the person. Pedro Misiak, and she is running for president in 2020. I actually think she is. I think that it's going to be Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker on a ticket together, running in 2020. Some people asking if she can be permanently silenced. No, I don't think she can be permanently silenced. I mean, you don't want her to be permanently silenced. You want her to follow the rules of the Senate. Maybe she could. There's probably like a censure rule, but I don't think they would censure her over that. That would be stupid. There's something that somebody called the Streisand effect. Barbara Streisand had this Malibu beach house, and she wanted nobody to take pictures of it because she didn't want to show that she's not green, that she's got this huge house and she lives better than everybody else. All that did was make more people want to take the picture. So, the more and more you try to silence her for things that aren't in the rules, the larger the platform she'll have. And CC Samawengo is talking about Kurt Schilling running against her. Who do I got? Well, Kurt may or may not run against her. He's talked about it. He's now on Breitbart Radio. I've talked to people that said that Kurt may or may not run. I'm not sure about that. But there are two other Republicans that have announced. There's an African-American gentleman from Cape Cod called Alan Rodney Waters. He was an independent. He's now a Republican. He lost a race for a local race or a representative down in the Cape. So he's running. I don't think he has a lot of money or can fund a campaign on his own. And then the other person, and in full disclosure, he's been a past client of mine when I used to sell printing, and he actually helped fund Red Mass Group. He was a donor to Red Mass Group when I owned it. His name is Rick, and of course I can't. Rick Green. His name is Rick Green, and he owns a auto parts website that's wildly successful, multi-millionaire, could probably self-fund a lot of the race, and he has formed basically an exploratory committee. I don't know if he's taken the exact step of filing with the FEC, but he's told people that he's going to run. So Rick Green is probably the person.
We got an additional question.
We got one more question.
Some punk Chris Pandolfo says, what about Mitt Romney for Senate?
Mitt Romney lives in Utah, and he will be running for Senate if he runs for Senate from Utah, not from the great state of Massachusetts. Thanks, some punk Chris Pandolfo from the next room who put a question. Yeah, but Mitt Romney's never going to run for anything in Massachusetts again. It's over for Mitt in Massachusetts. Ouch. Again, CRTV.com, CR Live is the promo code. You get $10 off a yearly subscription. Make sure you go to CRTV.com and sign up today. Talk to you guys next week.